with a depth of gratitude. Any day, come what may, if I had forever, it's here I'd want to stay. Isn't it a wonderful day? Isn't it a wonderful day? Isn't it a wonderful day?
Okay, now let's see.
That's mine.
That's mine. And I got him. And then mine is, where is it? We got too much stuff up here. Where is it?
Where's it called? Sunny side, sunny side.
Here it is.
That's
That's it right there. My language. Okay. C chord?
Good morning and welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist. My name is Bill Road. I'm a member of the Worship Associates of Ministry here at the church, and our minister is Reverend Thom Belote. I especially want to welcome any visitors or newcomers to our church and to call your attention to a special note for you, appropriately titled Welcome Guests and Newcomers, on the back side of your order of service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. I would also like to welcome those who are attending online, and note that the hymn lyrics and the elements and texts of the service will be displayed live stream on the screen. For the complete order of service, including weekly announcements, schedule, and upcoming events, the link to this is in the morning's church email and on the church's webpage. I would like to mention a few things. We are masking indoors on Sunday mornings as a way of striving to be an inclusive community. Our Sunday social is hosted by Rachel Rose and the Welcoming Ministry. The in-person Sunday social will be held immediately following in the Cast Courtyard, and the online Sunday social will be held at 1 p.m. The Zoom link for that is in the weekly announcements and your Sunday morning email. A couple of announcements I would like to make. First of all, the fall auction, the bidding has gone online. It's live online now, and as Tom says, bid early, bid often, and bid high. And finally, if you haven't already done so, please turn off all cell phones to maintain a worshipful experience. This morning, we're going to have a Share the Plate with Gerald Bonner. If you can come up now, please, thanks.
Good morning, fellow C3 Unitarian Universalists. I'm Gerald Bonner, co-captain of the Cystic Fibrosis Extreme Hike Team, Gavin's groupies, and here's Gavin. Hello. And with me today as well is Tanya Darrow, his mom, and we really like this guy when he's behaving and having a good time. So today's Share the Plate goes towards the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, which is here to help people with cystic fibrosis have better and healthier lives. We hike so that CF becomes cure found. Since the Extreme Hike is a national cystic fibrosis fundraising event, since the 1950s, or before the 1950s, a person born with cystic fibrosis was not able to expect to go to elementary school. Today, that number is now in the 50s. And thanks to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, they're living longer and healthier, and that means people like Gavin can participate with his school track team. Secondly, several years ago, you want to wave again? Do you want to tell them your time?
My what?
Your time. Anyhow, back to script. Several years ago, a new drug came out thanks to the help of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. It is called Trikafta, and it has helped improve 90% of the lives of cystic fibrosis patients. However, there's still 10% that need more help. So your generous donation today will help go fund additional research and supplement medical costs for families like Tanya and Gavin, and also help lead to new research that'll help make their lives healthier and more productive. So thank you for your donation. Come by the table later today after services. We have Halloween treats, and we'll tell you more about cystic fibrosis if you're interested. Thank you.
I would wave again, but I already waved 3 times, so.
If you now stand as you're willing and able in body or spirit, and join us with opening hymn number 368, Now Let Us Sing.
We'll do something a little different with this hymn. You notice there's 2 parts to this hymn, and I'm going to teach each part to you separately, and then the people on my left are going to do the first part, people on my right the second, and then the third verse we'll switch back, and we'll have a little fun. So if we can have a chord there. So everybody sing the now let us sing. The bottom lyric. 1, 2, 3. Now let us sing. sing, sing, sing. Now let us sing, 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 sing. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Let us sing to the power of the Lord within. Now let us sing, sing. Let's sing faith this time. Now let us sing, 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 sing. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now we're going to try the second part. Keep it going there. 1, 2, 3, and sing to the power of the faith within. Hope within. Sing to the power of the hope within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the faith within. Sing to the power of the faith within. Sing to the power of the faith within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the faith within. Okay, now we know the two parts. Now the people on the left are going to do the now let us sing. The people on the right will do what we just did. People on the right, then sing to the power. Okay? 1, 2, 1, 2. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Sing to the power of the faith within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the faith within. Hope! Sing to the power of the hope within. Sing to the power of the hope within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of hope. Love! Just sing. Sing to the power of the love within. Sing to the power of the love within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now we're going to switch parts, so you guys do joy. Now let us sing. Sing, sing, sing. Now let us sing, 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 sing. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing. Let's do it one more time with faith, faith. Now let us sing. Now let us sing. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the faith within.
Our call to worship this morning I should explain the origins of our worship service today. Back in the middle of August, the deadline for the September newsletter was fast approaching. The other 3 worship services for this month were planned, but ideas for this Sunday had been elusive. Glenn was patiently waiting to learn the service's theme so he could begin to plan music. Rachel was patiently waiting for a blurb to publish the newsletter. Bonnie Nelson was patiently waiting, ready to update the worship calendar for the church. And our minister thought, maybe something will come to me if I stretch my legs. So when he passed through the doors of the Jones building and stepped out onto the cast courtyard, something caught his eye. A brilliant streak of brightest yellow flashed through the air and landed precisely on the top of one of the cone flowers planted along the outside of the sanctuary wall. This tiny slice of sun with black wings and a black patch on its forehead hopped excitedly from coneflower to coneflower. And there was its mate, dull yellow and light brown. The 2 birds delighted in the garden. The minister delighted in the birds. Delight. Is delight always close at hand? What does delight mean in a world so troubled with turmoil and tragedy, What is the connection between delight and the spiritual life? Come, let us worship together. And if you'll join with me in the reading of the words for the chalice lighting there on the order of service. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great light.
This morning, we're going to go a little bit off of our normal order of service, and I'd like to lead us in 2 meditations on delight. For those here in the sanctuary, I'm going to invite you to follow along. For those watching from home, I'm going to invite you to find something. If there's something close at hand that you think smells really good, I'm going to invite you to find that. And if you are watching from home and you want to kind of sense what we're going to be doing, I will make sure that there's a way to get it to you at some point this week. So this is participatory, and if you are a person who is sitting along the inside aisle here, what I'm going to invite you to do is to scoot over to the edge, reach down underneath your seat, where you're going to find a basket. Everybody's going to find a basket of little packets. And what I'm going to invite you to do is take one and pass the plates around, and just start passing it around so everyone gets. There should be enough for everybody, and I'm going to take just a moment. Now, once you have your packet, just pass the baskets. Once you have your packet, don't open it yet. We got to follow the rules here, so don't open it yet, even though it's tempting. I will tell you when it's time to open the packets. And does anybody yet not have one? Then we have, okay, we're going to get some to the back there. And we going around here. Does everybody have a packet? Nope. All right, good. We're getting there. So here are the instructions, and I'm going to give the instructions like the basic instructions, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the meaning of it, and then I'm going to invite us to have a time of meditation and experience. So first, directions. When I say begin, that'll be an invitation to open up the loose flap of the envelope and to slide the envelope up under your mask and to take a few intentional slow breaths through your nose. The packets contain dried lavender. And the idea is to let the aroma of the lavender waft into your nostrils. Now, lavender is a strong scent, so this should work, but if you need like the full experience, if you want to heighten that experience, you can sort of crush a little bit, and that'll really get the smells released. And the other thing is important to let it kind of waft up. You do not want, trust me from the first service, you don't want to snort and like inhale. That's going to be uncomfortable for a lot of people. And the idea, so gentle breaths, and the other idea is to keep the lavender in the packet. That's why we don't want to dump out the contents of the packet on ourselves or our neighbors or the pews. The cleaning service will be tough on me. I invite you to prepare yourselves for delight. Take a moment to become present, fully present in the here and the now. Be here. Be in this sanctuary with its light streaming in through the windows, surrounded by art and by community, by people we know and people we do not yet know. Be here in this lavender sanctuary. Notice the purples around you, the purples of the pews, the purples of the light fixtures above. Notice your hands, feel the paper of the seed packets, their lightness and that gentle bulge created by what's inside. Now, as you begin, invite you to pay attention to your nose, the experience, the sensation, and all that comes to mind. Let us hold a few moments. And I ask, did anyone find that delightful? I hope so. Let us move now from the delight of smell to the delight of music, and we're going to have there's nothing more delightful than a trio of mandolins. So, quartet of mandolins. Oh, trio of mandolins and a guitar. An octave mandolin.
Hold on here. There we go. You can sing. I can't afford a carrot, but you look sweet. One more time. Daisy, Daisy, take my sunshine away. The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamed I held you in my arms. When I awoke, dear, I was mistaken. So I hang my head and I pray. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Please don't take my sunshine away. Please don't take my sunshine away.
Excuse my ignorance of mandolins. I didn't know that mandolins came in a jumbo size. So I learn something every day. So each week we hold in our service a time for sharing the joys and the sorrows that we bring with us into this church community. It's during this time that if you've come with either a significant joy or a significant sorrow, you're invited to come forward, place a stone in our water bowl, speak your name into the microphone, and share briefly your joy or your sorrow. Let us enter into this time of tenderness and trust.
I'm Judy Lechner, and I have two joys. Our older son, Walden, volunteered to help with the Side of Love campaign for getting out the vote, and he's been doing all 80 cards. I thought he would only do like 20, but he's doing all 80 that I picked up. And our younger son just got his social work therapist license. That's a really big deal in North Carolina. So, and I was hoping that the time wouldn't run out on him getting the license while he's doing, his therapy. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Dean, and I have a sorrow and a hope. I've mentioned a little boy named Jojo a few times over the last couple years. He's a 5-year-old who's battling a neuroblastoma. This is year number 4 in his 4th relapse. And September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And those families are so beyond exhausted that they don't often have the energy to advocate for their children. And childhood cancer only gets 4% of the total budget for cancer research. So if this is something that speaks to your heart, I encourage you to join me in wrapping our arms around these families and uplifting them. Thank you.
I'm Mary Beth Powell.
I'm Bill Rowe.
We have a joy and a sorrow. Our sorrow is that our dear friend Sandy Childs lost her husband Matt for a long battle with leukemia. We'll be going to Asheville tomorrow to be with her during his memorial service on Tuesday. The joy is that my sister Gianna, who lives in the Bay Area, who had come down with COVID and she was by herself because her husband was in France biking for 2 weeks. And I just said, just go out for a walk. Well, it was 107 degrees in Los Altos. So she goes out for a walk to a coffee shop, she's walking home, she faints and lays in somebody's yard for 6 hours before anybody found her. And the only way they found her is that she was supposed to meet somebody at her house, and her car was there, and her church organized a search party, and they went out and found her, and she's doing well. Thanks.
A last stone is placed for all the joys and sorrows we hold in our hearts this morning. I want to invite Bill to lead us in a time of meditation.
Of life and love, we know there's truth in the words of William Blake, that joy and woe are woven fine, a clothing for the soul divine. Amidst the joys and woes of our lives, the joys and sorrows of this community and of this world, we enter into this prayerful moment. We ask for the compassion to be tender with one another and with ourselves. We ask for the wisdom to understand each other as well as ourselves. We ask to be recommitted to the work of justice in our world. This morning, we ask as well that we be open to the joy of living. Like William Blake, may we see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower. Let us hold infinity in the palm of our hand and infinity in an hour. Let us hold a few moments of silence together. And if you will remain seated and join us in singing our song of meditation, number 15, The Lone Wild Bird.
You all ready for another delight? All right. I'm going to say worship associates to the back to help pass out, and the worship associates are going to be coming down and passing around our second delight. Our second meditation this morning, I'm going to talk while they come, and so you're going to have, I'll give you a hint what they are. It's a slice of Honeycrisp apple, and when it comes to you, and yep, just pass the plate. Pass the plates, yes. We'll get them going here. And so it's a slice of Honeycrisp apple, and pass the plate. Now let's pass the plates. There we go. All right. Great. So our second meditation this morning involves another of our senses, and when you get a piece of apple, I invite you to just kind of hold it. Don't eat it yet, because we're going to have a little meditation about delight, and then we're going to participate in the delight, and that's how we're going to do it. So raise your hand if you don't have apples yet. We need one in the balcony, and all right, we got some here in the center, so. All right. Oh, I need a piece of apple as well, so. Got some coming up to the balcony. Good. Should also ask for the offering. Did anyone not have the offering basket when it comes around with? So, and if you are worshiping at home, I invite you to grab a piece of fruit, or an apple, or even a dollop of honey. Find something sweet to savor. Does everyone have an apple now? Except for our mandolin players still need one, so. All right, great. I will begin. The Honeycrisp apple is a delight. To me, it is the greatest of all apples. I love its taste. It is wonderfully sweet and very juicy. It is actually a varietal of apples that was, when it was kind of developed, it is distinctive in a couple of ways. One, it's distinctive for its large cellular structure. It has larger cells than other apples, which means that it is very juicy and holds more juice than many other apples. I find its color also delightful. It has a palette ranging from deep pinkish red to yellow to orange to pink, and some of the slices that are out there are probably a little mottled and dappled in its skin color. I invite you to take a look at the color of your apple. There's a lot going on with this apple. And in a delight, context is also important, set and setting. So we're now a few days into the autumn season, and this is the beginning of peak apple season here in our hemisphere. And so there's a lot more delights are going to be coming over the next weeks and month. Tonight is also, I'll let you know, the first night of Rosh Hashanah in the Jewish tradition, the Jewish New Year. And one of the traditional ways in which Jewish people celebrate this high holy day is by eating sweet fruits. And in different areas of the world, the exact customs are different, but here it is often the custom to combine apple with honey, sweetness upon sweetness, in wishes for a good year ahead, full of life's sweetness. The Rosh Hashanah blessing or greeting is Lashana Tova, a good year. And for us, I didn't want to pass out honey in the sanctuary, so we get just the apple. Buildings and Grounds would not let me do honey. So we have just one sweetness instead of sweetness upon sweetness, but this sweetness is delightful. So what I'm going to invite you to do, is to take the apple slice, to eat it, and to be fully present to its taste, its sweetness, and to that sense of delight. Begin. Bill will introduce our offering.
Well, that's a good lead-in. My hearing aid coming off. I will let you all delight at what happened in the first service at my expense that people didn't know. I was trying to read the offertory words with my new hearing aids that are tied into my phone. Midway through, Siri said, "I'm sorry, I don't understand. Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that?" And I'm the only one that can hear it, and I'm trying to keep the words going, so I hope y'all have a little delight out of that. Freely have we received gifts that minister to our needs of body and spirit. Gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. Today, our generosity extends beyond our walls as we give to today's Share the Plate as well. If you wish to donate online, there's a QR code inside of the order of service, which can be read by your cell phone's camera, and there's information on the church's website. If you're writing a check for Share the Plate, please write STP in the memo line. We will now receive the morning offering.
One evening as the sun went down and the jungle fires was burning, down the track came a hobo hiking, and he said, "Boys, I'm not turning. I'm headed for a land that's far away, beside the crystal fountains. So come with me, we'll go and see the big rock candy mountains. In the big rock candy mountains, there's a land that's fair and bright, where the handouts grow on bushes, and you sleep out every night, where the boxcars all are empty, and the sun shines every day on the birds and the bees and the cigarette trees and the lemonade springs, while the bluebird sings in the big rock candy mountains. In the big rock candy mountains, all the cops have wooden legs, and the bulldogs all have rubber teeth, and the hens lay soft-boiled eggs. All the farmers' trees are full of fruit, and the barns are full of hay. Oh, I'm bound to go where there ain't no snow, where the rain don't fall and the wind don't blow, in the big rock candy mountains. In the big rock candy mountains, you never change your socks, and the little streams of alcohol come trickling down the rocks. The brakemen have to tip their hats, and the railroad bulls are blind. There's a lake of stew and of whiskey too. You can paddle all around them in a big canoe, in the big rock candy mountains. In the big rock candy mountains, all the jails are made of tin, and you can walk right out again as soon as you are in. There ain't no short-handled shovels, no axes, saws, or picks. Oh, I'm bound to stay where you sleep all day, where they hung the jerk who invented the work, in the big rock candy mountains. I'll see you all this coming fall, in the big rock candy mountains.
So I want to say, before I talk a little bit about delight today, or reflect a little bit on delight, a little bit about some of the worship services this year. Back in July, I had a fantasy, or I had it for a long time, that somehow I wanted to incorporate weightlifting in a worship service. And I decided, why not? Why wait? Why not act on that fantasy? And so kind of developed this service in August. Some of you were probably here, in which there was dance and Tai Chi and movement, and yes, my friend doing Olympic weightlifting during the service. And then in August, I had kind of this fantasy of, oh, that was so much fun. Why don't we have like smells and apples and kind of like an apple communion of sorts, and why don't we do that? And so I said, why not like act on this fantasy? And so we have this morning, and I will let you know that there are more kind of worship fantasies that have been coming up, that I feel like I've entered kind of a playful period in ministry, and I'm kind of indulging that playfulness a little bit. And so I wrote an email just this past week for my next playful idea. So hopefully you continue to be interested in helping me fulfill my worship fantasies, I guess. And that's it's so weird to say. Ministers do think like this, I guess. Delight. Is delight always close at hand? What does delight mean? What's it worth in a world so troubled by turmoil and tragedy? And what is the connection between delight and the spiritual life? Several years ago, before the pandemic, the poet Ross Gay, one of my favorite poets of all time, wrote a book called The Book of Delights. The Book of Delights is maybe my favorite book of all time, though I don't know if I can really say that. The premise of the book is so simple. For a year, Ross Gay challenged himself to write a short essay each and every day about something that delighted him. And 100 or so of those essays became this book, painting the picture of a man who lives his life attuned to delight. He writes in the preface, and you can sort of tell how he lives in this delight from what he writes. He says, "One day last July, feeling delighted and compelled to both wonder about and share that delight, I decided that it might feel nice, even useful, to write a daily essay about something delightful. I remember laughing to myself for how obvious it was. I would call it something like the Book of Delights." He continues, "I came up with a handful of rules: write a delight every day for a year, begin and end on my birthday, August 1st, draft them quickly and write them by hand. The rules made it a discipline, a practice. Spend time thinking and writing about delight every day." And one more passage from the preface. "Because I was writing these essayettes pretty much daily, confession, I skipped some days, patterns and themes and concerns show up. For instance, I traveled quite a bit this year, and I often write in cafes. My mother is often on my mind. Racism is often on my mind. Kindness is often on my mind. And politics and pop music and books and dreams and public spaces. My garden is often on my mind." And so this book, this little like guidebook to delight, we find him delighting in nature, in plants, in animals, in poetry, in music, in art, in words, gestures, language, expression, and delight in people. Most of all, delight in people, from the complete stranger at the cafe to the closest friend, to the family member. I actually, before the pandemic, preached on Ross Gay's Book of Delights. My sermon that morning was written in the form of 101 things I love about being the minister of this church, if you were there back then. And the subsequent years have only added to that list of delights. We should ask, what is a delight exactly? And I want to compare and contrast delight with two other forms of enjoyment, two other concepts, one being joy and the other being pleasure. Joy and pleasure with delight, all three great things. Joy, in my thinking, is an expression of happiness and pleasure and delight. But joy has some added sense as well. Joy, to me, conveys a sense of virtue or virtuousness. We're supposed to find joy in what is good. We find joy in a new grandchild, in a college graduation, in being rewarded for something that we do well, or having that thing that we do well celebrated. Joy is virtuous and wholesome. We can even say that joy has a moral quality to it. Pleasure is a little different. It's like they're like Venn diagrams where they overlap a lot but not entirely. Pleasure is a sensation that is highly personal. And unlike joy, pleasure does not seem to have a moral dimension, good or bad, or it's not necessarily moral or immoral. We can use pleasure to describe whatever feels good, whatever feels really good. Pleasure is usually spoken of in a highly individualistic sense. Pleasure is whatever feels good to us. Pleasure can be found in a foot rub, in something delicious that we eat, or a piece of art that we find stimulating. There are many sources of pleasure. So what about delight? Delight is perhaps somewhere between joy and pleasure, but not exactly. It's a third part of that Venn diagram. Delight does not necessarily have the high moral refinement of joy, but it's also not exactly the same thing as pleasure either. Delight is its own thing. And what stands out about delight to me, as I've thought about it and meditated on it, is that delight, at least in my thinking, involves our engaged, present response to something that is external to us. Delight is a word that we use to describe our interaction or our perception of, or our experience of, something out there. And so that flower, that smell of the flower, or that taste of an apple, it is, or that sight of the goldfinch in the garden, it is this, there's that thing, and then there's us, and there's that interaction or that sense of it. Delight involves perception, noticing, attention, awareness. Delight involves being present. And I do want to add the benefit of coming to the second service is that you get the revised version of the sermon, is that Mary LeMay, who was at the first service, says what's always struck me about delight is I've always thought about delight as something that surprises, that there's an element of surprise to it, which can be true, can be sort of, we see something that grabs us and brings our attention to it. Is delight always close at hand? Here's what Ross Gay says, the last paragraph of his preface to his Book of Delights. Ross Gay writes, "It didn't take me long to learn that the discipline or practice of writing these essays occasioned a kind of delight radar. Or maybe it was more like the development of a delight muscle. Something that implies that the more you study delight, the more delight there is to study. A month or two into this writing project, delights were calling to me. Write about me. Write about me. And because it's rude not to acknowledge your delights, I'll tell them that though they may not become essayettes, they were still important, and I was grateful to them. Which is to say, I felt my life to be more full of delight. Not without sorrow, or fear, or pain, or loss, but more full of delight. I also learned this year that my delight grows, much like love and joy, when it is shared." What does delight mean in a world so troubled by turmoil and tragedy? When I was writing the sermon, I pulled up a song by a rock band from Austin, Texas. It's a new rock band. They're just kind of on the verge of trying to make it. And the interesting thing about this rock band is that their lead singer and their lead guitarist is a Unitarian Universalist minister named Aaron Walter. So it's kind of rock music, electric guitars and everything. In their first single, their first song that is kind of their, playing with having it be popular is called, the title of the song answers this question to me. The title of the song is "The World is on Fire," parentheses, "and we still fall in love." Or "The world is on fire and still we fall in love." And to me, that speaks to the place of delight in a world so troubled by turmoil and tragedy. And it seems to me that one of the things that we're called to do in these times and in our lives is to paint, is for our lives to be painted with a full emotional palette. A full emotional palette that includes, yes, the sorrow and the outrage and the anger and the grief, as well as the joy and the love and the hope and the humor and the gladness and the delight. And that by painting our lives with this full palette, we get the sense of something brilliant, a brilliant artwork, not to have all of those senses just muddy together into a blah, but to really be able to distinct and to experience all of those colors in their fullness. And so delight has a place on this full palette, alongside the outrage and the rage and the anger. I once had a wise elder parishioner say to me, said at this age, and she was probably, I think, late 80s when she said this to me, at this age, the emotion I feel is poignancy, which is both joy and sorrow and loss and gladness, all experienced at the same time distinctively. That really stayed with me. Poignancy. What is the connection between delight and the spiritual life? I think what stands out to me for delight is this sense that it comes from a deep form of noticing. It seems like all spiritual practices begin with noticing. If you take meditation classes, begin by noticing your breath. If you take yoga, begin by noticing your breath. If you study forms of Christian prayer, begin by noticing your breath. Begin by noticing. Begin by noticing seems to be something that goes through all the spiritual traditions. And not just notice yourself, but notice the moment. Be present in the moment. Be here now, right? And so delight, by giving attention to those things that delight us, those things that surprise us, those moments of great joy that we glimpse, allows us to, for a moment, be present. I conclude with these words by William Blake. He says, "See the world in a grain of sand, and heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of our hand and eternity in an hour. May we have delight upon delight." Thank you. And we're going to send, there aren't many songs about delight that are in our hymnal. And so we're going to do one about joy, which is on that same Venn diagram. We're going to do Ode to Joy. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, number 29. And I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and sing along.
Joy.
In the words of extinguishing our chalice there in your order of service, we extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And before we sing our closing song, Shalom, let's show our appreciation for the musicians this morning. In keeping with our COVID protocols, if you prefer not to hold hands during the singing of Shalom, simply cross your hands over your chest. If you're comfortable with holding hands with those around you, indicate that by putting your hands to either side. So.
Thank you.